You've just stepped into the undercurrent, where silence speaks, and the dead have stories, where trials twist, lies tangle, and justice waits in the dark. This is 12 Gauge, bent, not just reporting, relentless pursuit.
Homicide files, chalk lines fade, but the pain still breathes in the scars they made. Names on a flyer, tears on a post. We speak for the voices that need it the most. From alleyway blood to courtroom lies, we break it down raw, no suit, no disguise. Autopsy ink and ballistic threads, each theory we chase, every word they said. Crime don't sleep, and neither do we. Mic to the ground where the truth runs free. Learn, 12 Gauge locked on the case, tracking the truth, no time to waste. From cold-blooded murder to trials on the stand, we dig through the dark with a mic in hand. Missing souls, addiction scars, forensics lit under justice stars. You want real? We speak that flame. Awareness, theory, remember the name. 12 Gauge, we aim with truth. Late night reports, body cam rolls, whispers in courtroom, shattered parole, patterns in blood, a trace on the blade, every unsolved tale, yeah, we invade the addicts.
All right. Good morning, everyone. What am I doing up this early, you ask? Well, I usually get up an hour from now, so not really that early for me. Um, but I've been watching a little bit of YouTube for a little bit, and I came across a News Nation interview, and I've heard more than one person say there's no way that DoorDash driver could have parked and saw Brian Koberger. I'm not here to debunk anybody's theories or to even start any drama, but I'm going to show you there is a possible way. And I've said this more than once on my lives, but of course my channel's not that big, so most people can't or won't listen to what I got to say because for whatever reason. Well, I'm going to show you the interview, and then I'm going to show you the camera footage that I'm going to borrow from my good friend Jeff H. So here's the interview with Ashley from News Nation, and then we'll go from there. I got to set this up better. I don't know why I just don't put that as my default. Here we go.
Away from the opening statements in the Idaho quadruple murder trial. And if you thought things couldn't look any worse for Brian Koberger with, the DNA and the cell phone data and the surveillance video and an eyewitness description of his eyebrows, at least, not to mention the laughable alibi, I like stargazing at 4 o'clock in the morning with my phone turned off. I know, I kind of thought that too, until what I heard today. A smoking gun that both sides somehow managed to keep under wraps for months. There is apparently another eyewitness. It's the DoorDash driver who delivered food to Xana Kernodle less than 10 minutes before Xana and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin and Xana's housemates Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez were all savagely murdered by an intruder. Police have confirmed to us that a woman seen in some of the interrogation footage from an unrelated incident is a 43-year-old woman known only as MM in the court documents. She was arrested that day for a DUI while being questioned at the Pullman, Washington police station. Just happened to reveal to the officers that she had to, quote, testify in a big murder case here because I'm the DoorDash driver.
And I did a video on this probably Saturday, and there's a lot of individuals that have that bias And they'll always have that bias. You can't convince people of certain things that they're unwilling to see or change their stance on, and that's fine. They'll have that bias on there's no way that this could have happened because of this. Because they don't look any further than their last recollection or memory of what they know about certain things. Well, I'm about to show you. Let me take Ashley down and let me put Jeff back up. What I'm about to show you is we all know that Xana got her DoorDash at what? 3:59, right? That's supposedly the time that the DoorDash driver dropped off Xana's order. And if this lady is indeed the DoorDash driver, then there is a way that she could have seen Brian. I think where people are getting mixed up in all this, it's the semantics of what she said. I parked next to Brian. Well, parking next to Brian does not mean I pulled up next to Brian and parked next to him. She could have already been parked. And my mouse just went crazy, of course. Just like everything else when they're trying to show something. So she says, I parked next to Brian. And many people think that that means, like I just said, that she pulled up next to him and parked. Which, in reality, is not true. It's all the way you word things. And you say, well, 12, you just want to word things against Koberger. You want to make him guilty. No, I don't. I want to show, just like everybody else, that quote unquote evidence. Well, look at this next. There's 3:30, there's 3:39, and then we're going to have the next important passing, which is 3:56:52. And then we have 4:05 and 4:07. So at 3:56, and the DoorDash driver delivered the food at 3:59. And as you see there, you say there's no way that this individual could have done this. There's no way that she could have seen him. And I tell you, there is. Not based on what I believe, not based on what I want to think, but based on what these cameras are showing. If this is indeed his vehicle, which I believe it is, in my opinion, then as he's driving by at 3:56 to go around the Queen Road Apartments, as she pulls up at 3:57, 3:58 even, then that's plenty of time for him to get around those apartments, come back down King Road, and creep by her as she's already parked. Because something must have happened in order for her to say that she parked next to him. what does that really mean? Does that mean that he slowed down enough for her to feel like he was parking next to her? Or what would have happened? What could have happened? And I don't like those coulda, woulda, shoulda things. But let's use your critical thinking skills here. Let's say he does pull up slowly off King Road on the side of the house. Okay? Let's say he does do that. And she's parked already in front of the house. If he is creeping by her because there's not that much room between the front of the house and that drop off where those stairs are, he would be creeping, right? If for no other reason than to not hit that tree in front of the house or the dumpster. So he would have to barely creep by her. Is that not true? Of course it is. So for people not to believe, and they want to say that this woman's eyesight is all of a sudden bad because she has had a history with drugs or alcohol, or even on that getting pulled over for DUI. All of a sudden, these witnesses are unreliable at trial because their eyesight automatically gets bad, right? So I believe at that 405, what made him come back around was the fact that that's where he did the 3-point turn. That's why 407 was the next sighting of the car. So 356, he passed that vehicle. I have to look at the PCA, but I know that he did a 3-point turn on one of those passings. It's either 356 or 405. One of those he did a 3-point turn. So if he did a 3-point turn, obviously he was heading west on Queen, and he would have potentially went right next to the DoorDash driver. So all of a sudden she has bad eyesight because she got pulled over for a DUI. All of a sudden she has a bad memory because she got pulled over for a DUI. All of a sudden, just like Dylan, because she was in and out of a drunken haze, she has a bad eyesight, bad memory, bad recollection of what was going on. People really never cease to amaze me when they're thinking like that. It's kind of like, you know, a prostitute gets attacked. And since she's a prostitute and a drug addict, her eyesight is bad, her hearing is bad, her recollection of her environment is bad. You know, I understand it's the defense's job to discredit the witnesses. I get that. But why must we always add to that narrative? Because if it holds true, then how come we can't use Brian's past drug addiction against him? without people getting mad. You get what I'm saying? Because people do get up in arms when you mention the past heroin use or any of that. Well, he's no longer a heroin addict. That's when he was young. Okay, well, then this lady gets one DUI, and obviously she's had some trauma in her life that she's dealing with the best she knows how, and you're crucifying her ability to recall anything because she could have been high that night while she was out delivering DoorDash. Could have been. Just like Brian could have been high before he committed the crime because he was a past addict. Do you see how that works?
End quote. When the officer asks which murder case, the woman says, quote, the murder case with the college girls. I'm the DoorDash driver. I saw Brian there. I parked right next to him, end quote. And I think I need to read that last part again because I did a double take when I first saw it. I saw Brian there, she says. I parked right next to him. That interrogation video was posted on a YouTube account where it was discovered by web sleuths.
So, if she parked right next to him, like I said, she could have already been parked. He's slowly creeping by her, or he's creeping, and she parks just as they pass. You know, it's easy and culpable to happen. It really is. But it's based on how you look at the case. If you look at all the circumstantial evidence and you want to throw it out the window and say that there's no way that this could have happened, then of course there's no way it could have happened in your eyes because that's your bias. Do I have bias? I have bias toward wanting to see this case get on with it. I have bias in wanting to see whether this man is indeed guilty or innocent. And I have bias in getting justice for the 4 murdered kids that night. Do I care whether Brian was cruising by, whether he was idling next to the DoorDash driver, or she saw him in passing? Do I want to focus on the semantics of the wording? No, I don't. But it does bring about the juiciness, right? Because we are going to have a continuance hearing today. Is this going to play any?
Journalists. It's unclear, though, whether the woman's outing will affect the start date of the trial itself. The defense has been pushing for a delay for weeks now, but that's over the media leaks, the whole Dateline episode kerfuffle. And that is due to be the subject of a big hearing tomorrow. But the prosecutors want the trial to stay on target for the planned August 11th beginning. Our senior national correspondent, Brian Enton, is in Boise, Idaho tonight with much more on what all of this means. First of all, I did not see this coming. A second eyewitness.
Yeah, this is a bombshell, Ashley. If it is true what this DoorDash driver is saying, then this is a bombshell. I came to Boise thinking that the hearing tomorrow was going to be the big.
Because if you believe Dylan, which many of you don't, then her testimony would put him in the house. And then if you believe this woman, which many people don't now, then she would put him outside the house. 2 eyewitnesses IDing the same type man. One able to identify the vehicle. What makes you think that how they were able to be on that vehicle so quickly? Because she ID'd it. She was right next to it. Well, many people, PKC, they assume because she got the DUI, then she's a drug addict, she's a junkie, she's a dope fiend. They're already calling her different names. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the age old adage that if somebody dressed provocatively and they get raped, they were asking for it. Because if they would have been dressing that way, then it wouldn't have turned on the rapist enough to want to rape her. It's that old school thinking. It's that old looking at the lens of reality on what you know rather than being able to look outside the box. And even one of the persons that I saw that was talking about this claims to be a very educated person, but yet he sounds really ignorant when he comes across with his statements on this DoorDash driver.
Story, but this is big. The Idaho Statesman was the first to break it today. Basically, this DoorDash driver, who we knew existed, by the way, we've known for a long time there was a DoorDash driver that she goes by MM. She's been referenced in the court documents. We knew that she arrived there to deliver DoorDash at 4 a.m., about 10 minutes or so before the murders. But what we didn't know is what is in this body camera video. And let me explain this a little bit. You did, Ashley, but the reason we know about this is because last year, this DoorDash driver, totally unrelated to the Brian Kohberger case, she got pulled over, suspected of driving under the influence. She had a expired tag, suspected of being under prescription pills, and she got pulled over, and she just started volunteering this information to the police while she was being interviewed, and it's on body cam. And she said that she's the DoorDash driver.
And people say, I'm not defending this woman, okay? But people say, look, she's high as hell. Well, of course, she admitted taking a hydrocodone and a Sudafed. You know what's in Sudafed, right? It's one of the components of how and what goes into methamphetamines. So if she's under hydrocodone for pain of her arthritis and everything, of course she would look, her eyes would be glazed over and all that. But once again, people want to call somebody a dope fiend because they're getting pulled over for a DUI. That's interesting to me. And a lot of people have done it. She's a junkie. She's this. She's a meth head. Okay. So do you not want her to be a person of that could identify the killer of these 4 kids? Or is it more important to you her character? Because to me, what she does on her own time, just like many of you say, what I do in my own time, my business. Okay, well, what you do in your own time is your business. But if you were to see something happening, you see a crime being committed, all of a sudden, people want to take into account what you do on your own time as a character flaw. So I ask you, enough with the double standard. Is she going to be high in court? Of course not. How can you be even subjected to that kind of scrutiny unless you have a history of it? You know, she had that one prior DUI. How many of you have ever been in trouble with the law with multitudes of other charges? And yet you don't want to be linked to those charges today because time goes on and people change. If that's true, then how did this woman get chastised, ridiculed, and pigeonholed into being a junkie? I'm asking logical questions, aren't I? I'm not trying to be facetious. Aren't these questions logical? Because a lot of people would be pissed off if they were being treated like this woman is and what's being said about her. Like I said a long time ago, if your life was caught on camera, like a lot of these individual lives are because of this high profile case, how would you like the scrutiny of the public based on one moment in time when you were not at your best and you made a mistake and you ended up being questioned for it, all caught on body cap, for the same people that are judging and condemning this woman are the same people that cannot see the possibility of Brian being able to kill these people and be the killer. Where there's much more evidence in that than there is in just a 3 to 5 minute video. But you're basing your whole knowledge on what you know on a 3 to 5 minute video on this
Driving
woman,
from the Brian Koberger
on
case.
this woman potentially being a junkie. Yes, she does. She does. But just like everything else, people are quick to judge instead of quick to have compassion. Her DNA wasn't found on the knife sheath under Maddie Mogan. Koberger's was. So when she says she parked right next to Brian, the semantics, parked, pulled up, was in the vicinity, and what she saw, people say, did she have eyes in the back of her head? Was she able to look behind her while she was looking at Brian? You moron. Does your head not swivel? Or is your spine fused together where you have to move your whole body in order to see behind you? If that's the case, then I retract my moron statement. But most people can move their head and swivel it from side to side in less than a second and see exactly what this man is looking at. She said he was unable to break his trance like state based on something that somebody read. Whether that's real, whether that's not, you know, that's what I'm going that based on. So I'll quit talking about that because that's obviously not been vetted. So, you know, yeah, exactly. People don't have compassion for victims unless they're painting themselves as a victim. That's the only time that they want compassion. But like I said, you instantly want to paint this woman as a junkie, unreliable, but the same people that are wanting to paint this woman in that corner cannot possibly see, you know? Well, I get that, and that's what somebody just said in another live. So I get that, Alexia. I get that. I heard that in another live a couple minutes ago. But we don't know this woman. That's on assumption that she's a dope fiend. That's on assumption that she's a junkie out there on the street selling information for dope, which we don't know that that's the severity of her hydrocodone usage or anything else that she's using. My point of the matter is, most of you smoke weed, right? But you get upset and angry when somebody judges you for it, when they assume that you can't take care of your family, when they assume that you're just the same as a person shooting up by a dumpster. Do you see the point there? We don't know what this lady's life was like. We know 3 to 5 minute video. You know what I'm saying? So whenever somebody judges you for your recreational use or whatever it is that you're using, why would you get mad if they have that prejudgment on you, but yet they don't know you, right? They don't know your business. They don't know your life. Then why would you judge this woman so harshly when all you know is 3 to 5 minutes of her life caught on video? You don't know, other than, her husband was murdered in front of her. She has health issues beyond belief. But that's not enough for you to realize that if she uses hydrocodone lately for the pain, or every 6 hours or whatever, then that makes her a junkie. Sudafed to be able to not breathe. How many of us take antihistamines to be able to breathe clearer? A lot of us. Would it piss you off if you told somebody, hey, I took a hydrocodone for my back today and some Sudafed, so if I'm acting a little loopy, that's why? Well, you're a junkie. What? You get what I'm saying? It just weird. It's just weird to me how quick people judge based on a video as if they know her whole life, especially tagging her with such discriminatory labels. So everybody out from 3 to 5 in the morning is either having sex or getting high, according to this person's mentality. Well, I disagree. Some people are up getting ready for work. Hell, I'm up at 4 o'clock. I'm not getting high. I'm not having sex. I'm not going around committing murder. None of that. So to use that absolute as everybody, that's 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 not cool, man. Not cool. But you be you. I'll be me. Yeah, exactly. It's hard to believe this video's been out, but nothing's coincidental. Everybody pushes a narrative. You ever notice the closer we get to these hearings, there's always something huge dropping, and they're always blaming the prosecution because it never looked good for Brian? But who's asking for the continuance? And I'm not blaming the defense, but who would have more to gain? Who would have more to gain by discrediting this witness? If the prosecution has been trying to hide her identity all this time, and all of a sudden this video gets dropped and her livelihood and everything about her is in question, isn't that trying to already try this trial in the public forum, which it seems the defense attorney wants to do that? Let's watch a little more.
Is that she saw Brian Kohberger, which is really the headline here, that she's a witness who saw Brian Kohberger, and all of this just happened to come out through this new body camera video from Pullman, Washington.
So, Brian, you take us back to the house, but we're going to have to describe it because the house has been torn down. But if you look at the front of the house, there's a parking lot out front where all the cars were lined up, and they stayed that way till they were all towed. But this DoorDash driver said, I parked next to him, which makes me wonder if she's talking about the parking lot out front, or if she's talking about that side street off to the left where that bushy tree is, that big, tall, bushy tree is, just adjacent to the red car there. Because there's this.
You see the whole semantics, the wordplay? I mean, they're even doing it. It makes me wonder if she could have parked on the up by the trees, delivering the food in the backyard. And then they go to say, well, most Door Dashes that I've had, they deliver in the front yard, which is right. Most do. So why would she park along the tree line? She wouldn't. Like I said, it's all the wordplay. It is a bombshell. I'm not saying it's not a big deal. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not liking how she judged based on what she got pulled over for. You know what I mean, Alexi? I'm not saying it's not a bombshell. I'm saying that the fact that people are trying to discredit her before she even takes the stand is what's wrong with this case. People say there's so much craziness and so much unbelievable stuff, but people make it unbelievable. Even what she just said. Why would she park along the tree line? Is that what she meant? She parked next to him? Well, let's use your brain a little bit, Ashley. There's more room in the front of that house to be able to park off the road because you don't want to get hit. So it makes more sense to either pull in the driveway or pull alongside the driveway and park in there. You wouldn't do it on the side street because there's cars parked along one side of the street, which I don't believe Brian parked next to those cars anyways. I believe he parked further back and walked up. You know what I mean? I don't believe that he parked alongside the house like many people believe. I mean, they make it sound like he parked, left his car idling, jumped in it, took off. No, I believe that he parked further up. He was a runner, so he's able to cover distances quite quickly. So it wouldn't have taken him no time to get back up there and be off and running. So, you know, it just not really annoying because you have to have some emotional connection to something to be annoyed. I don't have an emotional connection to this. It's just the understanding of how people use people's mindsets to kind of govern which direction they want you to think. This whole interview is kind of like that.
The side street that goes up that left-hand side of the house, and isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very
that the killer used. Yeah, walk me through that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. There was someone talking in my ear. Yeah, it's a very, very important part of what she said. Not only that she said, I saw Brian Koberger, but I wrote this down. She said, I parked right next to him. Now, you think about DoorDash. We all order DoorDash. A DoorDash driver typically would park right in front of the house where they're delivering the food. They pull into the driveway. You see them in the driveway. They get out. They go to the front door. They give the customer the food. Why would the DoorDash driver drive onto the side street of the house, which with the murder house, you've got the front of the house, you've got the driveway like you described it, but then you've got this side road that goes up the side near an apartment building. You can't even walk down to the house like through, you'd have to go through the woods unless you walked all the way around if you went to the side road. We don't know exactly where Brian Koberger parks, you know, if he's guilty of all this. They've never said.
And they continue doing this whole semantics thing. I'm not going to play that whole video. It's on YouTube if you want to go and watch it. It dropped probably about, I don't know, a couple of hours ago. But I'm going to play Jeff's video again. That way y'all can see, the ones of you that just came in here, that passes. Because he did them in sequence. There's one at 3:30, 3:39, and the one that people forget about is the 3:56, 4:05, and 4:07. Like I'm saying, that 356 one, by the time he gets around the Queen Road Apartments, if she's delivering the food at 359, that could have been the pass and what she's talking about. He went right by her. You get what I'm saying? I don't believe, anything after that would have been too much time unless she herself turned around in the driveway and then Brian was coming back down at 405 and they passed. 407 would definitely be too much time, but 357 to 405, right? That range. Um, possibly, possibly so, Alexi. I mean, she's had. I don't know that she became a drug addict. I mean, are you really a drug addict if you have extreme arthritis and you're using medication to manage it? I mean, does that make you a drug addict? It's kind of like people. I don't smoke weed, okay? So it's like people with um medication cards that smoke weed for all kinds of pain. Are they drug addicts because they're smoking weed? Hey, Walt, I'm just asking questions. I'm not coming at anybody. You get what I'm saying? It's early in the morning. This is my early morning voice. Um so that's my whole point is I don't believe she was a drug addict. I don't believe that her statement should be scrutinized as much as it is because of one incident caught on video. If anything, the defense is probably, if this does make it into the trial, the defense is going to try to discredit her, just like they're going to try to discredit Dylan. But you don't think the jury's smart enough to think, well, they're trying to discredit this person for a reason? Do we really want to focus on Dylan's being drunk and unable to, you know, go in and out of consciousness through every time she opened the door? Is that going to really matter to us as much? So is this DoorDash driver, is her in and out passing with Brian that one time gonna be enough to give us reasonable doubt that she could have been under the influence? You cannot really go on somebody's past based on their current state of mind. You can't. You can't say that, okay, well, she got a DUI a year or 2 years later. So in 2022, whenever she was delivering food, where was her state of mind then? Her husband wasn't dead. She hadn't experienced all that trauma. She was out delivering food. There was no DUIs that night on her delivering food. Where are the positives for this? Everything has to be negative. One more time. 330, 339, 356, 405, 407. Yeah, drunk Dylan. And did you see that 406 one? That car was going back the other direction. I've never noticed that. Okay, that's the one. Okay, that makes sense. There wasn't a 3-point turn. That's the car that came up, backed up, and then went back down. So if Brian came around, saw the DoorDash driver, went, did the 3-point turn, came back up, 406 did this 3-point turn and went back down to make sure coast is clear, I'm sure, and then came back on the last pass and then started what he was going to later do if he is the one. See how the 405, watch, 406. See, that's the car that does the turnaround. See? I never thought of this, but it does make sense why he went around the house so many times like that. If his eyesight is bad, as they've said, it would be easier for you to get a good look through the driver's side window rather than trying to look out the passenger's window. Because if you're out trying to look through the passenger's window, you have the propensity to run into something. So it's a lot easier to cruise by looking out the driver's side window. So that makes sense why he made so many passes and went around the Queen Road apartments in front of the King Road residence. That does make a lot more sense. Because you can see the house as you're passing it through the passenger side window going up around Queen Road. But it's not a clear shot because you're paying attention to your driving. So as you're rounding Queen Road, it does make a lot more sense to come back down that side street. You get the visual through the driver's side window. You can look in the back, make sure the lights are on or off, and then you cruise through the front and make sure the lights are on or off too. Oh man, why didn't I ever put that together? Let me know what you think about this video. You don't have to agree with my hypothesis or any of the statement that I made, but I'd like you guys to kind of lighten up on the DoorDash driver. She obviously has gone through a tough time, just like a lot of people in this case. You know, the person that people want to be innocent, he's gone through a hard time, and people can see that. But they can't see how these other people have had tough lives as well, and they want to crucify them. You get what I'm saying? So I hope that you enjoyed this. Give it a like, subscribe, let people know about the channel. And I'll be back probably later on tonight, if not later on this week, to continue talking about this. You guys have a wonderful day. Don't sweat the small stuff. I hope that if you are dealing with any type of pain or illness and you're having to take medication for it, the people don't judge you for that. They made medication for a reason, not because you became a junkie by taking it. You're doing it to have a better quality of life. I'll see y'all soon. Maestro, cue that music.